I want to thank the Friends of Italy Society of Hawaii for their patience with my technical problems, and for all of you for attending tonight. And I'm going to ask, hopefully we'll generate some questions tonight and also some ideas for future talks. Kind of an overview for us for tonight. We'll go over what to do before you leave, all the preparations to make, how to get to Italy, some of my favorite kind of flying routes to get over there, when to travel, when are the best times to go, in my opinion. This is all, of course, my opinion, where to go, and then how to travel once you get there. The where to go section will have some ideas of the big sites, maybe some lesser sites. And then while you're there, what are some basic travel tips that I like to share with people? As I mentioned, I've been a tour guide for over 15 years. And so I'm going to share with you some of the most frequently asked questions and what I think are the most valuable tips for travel. So, of course, the first thing you need to do, make sure that you have a passport. I'm not going to assume everyone has a passport, but if you do need to get a passport, you should allow at least 12 weeks to get your passport. And the cost is $130. And that's if you apply for it online 12 weeks ahead. If you need it expedited, 5 to 7 weeks, but it'll cost you an extra $60. Now, I have written there, make photocopies. I always recommend keeping a photocopy on you in your backpack, in your wallet, in your suitcase, just in case. You never know if you end up losing your passport. It's really handy to have a photocopy. Make sure that you have at least 6 months on your passport before you leave. Because the immigration officials on the other end are going to want to see that you have at least 90 days beyond your stay, 90 days of validity. And a tourist visa, which currently we don't have to apply for any type of visa, but in the future we may. A tourist visa lasts for 90 days. So you can stay in Italy up to 90 days, but beyond that, you would need a different type of visa. I've listed the website for the passports there, travel.state.gov. It's very simple. It will walk you all the way through how to apply for your passport. And then credit cards and ATM cards. Gone are the days of traveler's checks, and gone are the days of bringing a U.S. currency over with you and then exchanging at a bank. The best thing to do is take a little bit of U.S. currency just in case for some reason you need to I don't know, get a hamburger in the airport. But once you get into Italy, you can take money directly out of a bank, just like you do at home. Notify your bank ahead of time, but then you can take the money straight out of a bank ATM. Watch out for exchange booths or machines that are called, I think they're called Forex, that will exchange currency for you. Why? Because of the markup. If you take money out of a regular bank ATM, they call them bankomat there. If you take them straight out of a bankomat machine, you will get a bank-to-bank transfer rate. Now, your bank and their bank may charge you a fee, but you're getting the bank-to-bank transfer rate, and it's not a big markup. Now, credit cards, it's important to make sure that the credit card you're using doesn't charge a foreign exchange fee. And so you can look on your the information on your website of your credit card company and find out if they charge a foreign exchange fee. Because we're focused on Hawaii here, the Friends of Italy of Hawaii, or I'm sorry, the Hawaiian Airlines is a great credit card to take. It's a Barclays credit card. It is a true chip and PIN card, which I'll get into why that's helpful when you're traveling in Italy, and it doesn't charge a foreign exchange fee. Now, Before you're planning, you might be thinking about, do I want to take a tour? Do I want to travel independently? Some of you have maybe been to Italy. I am really targeting this talk at first-time travelers. So I'm going to really cover these basics. Thinking about taking a tour, you can think about large group tour or small group tour. Large group tours are going to be your most cost effective, probably. What you want to do if you're looking into a large group tour is look at what's included, because a lot of times they're selling you at a lowest kind of price point. And what can end up happening then is that they're going to upsell you, charge you for a walking tour of this. There aren't meals included. They won't have entrances to different sites. You might be staying in a hotel outside of the city center. And in order to get into the city, you have to take their excursion. And that's how they make their money. Guides on a lot of kind of big bus tours are also not working like a salaried person. They work for tips and they work on kickbacks and so they'll take you shopping, or they might take you to a certain restaurant or that kind of thing, and then they get a kickback. So those lower end tours, those ones that seem like it's too good of a price to be true, that's probably what's happening. So check before you book, check what is included and where you're going to stay, because you want to stay with a tour group that is staying in the city center near the sites where you want to go if you want to book a group tour. And there are some great big bus tour operators out there, and I'm happy to answer questions about that later. There are great big group tours, and they can be very efficient and they can be very economical. The other way that you could go if you want to do a tour is a smaller group tour. Now, I work for a company called Guided By, and that's what we do is small group tours. Now, the benefit of a small group tour is that you get a more kind of intimate experience. You're traveling with a smaller group of people. You have more direct access with your personal guide and the local guides. And so it's more of an intimate experience, I guess I would say. The other thing about small group tours is that they are traveling around in a smaller vehicle. And so you can get into places that you just can't get with a big bus. The other nice thing about small group tours is that when you're traveling with a group, now the big bus tours can be a group of 50. A lot of them are, moderate and 20-something people, but still that's a lot of people sitting at a dinner table or in a museum, for example. And a lot of the museums anymore are actually forcing groups to divide. So your group, if you go on a large tour, they may divide your group into smaller groups when you're entering different museums. So those are kind of your two options. You could do the larger group, but make sure you check to see what's included, or smaller group. And then independent travel. And I'm going to mostly be talking about, that's really the end of my talking about tours, but I'm going to be talking about independent travel and how to move around in Italy on your own. And the first thing I'd recommend is to get a really good guidebook. Now I have two up here on the screen. I have worked for Rick Steves Europe since 2007. And I have to say that, that this is really the best thing, the best book going. I'm sorry. This is the best book out there. This book is updated every year. It's really like a manual. You can, it provides a lot of great detailed information, and it's really a how-to for how to move around Italy, and gives a lot of great overview information. So what you want to make sure is that your guidebook is up to date. And it also is obviously covering the areas that you want to travel. Now, the blue guide, I have that here because for me, as somebody who likes to really get into, the smaller places, the more out of the way places, well, the blue guide really provides a level of detail that the Rick Steves book does not. Rick Steves is a fantastic overview. Blue guide gets into much more detail about every church, every tiny site, every castle that you might be going to. So those are just two guidebooks, but the main thing is make sure that guidebook is up to date. And I really can't emphasize the Rick Steves guidebooks are phenomenal. Now, getting to Italy from Honolulu. It's not easy, right? You should plan for at least a minimum of 21 hours to get there. Probably more on the order of 24 hours of travel time. I usually personally plan on 2 nights on a plane. You can get there 1 overnight. I usually look for, just because I hate flying to the West Coast at, that short 5-hour flight overnight. I usually try to fly to the East Coast, and you can get direct flights to the East Coast and then make my big hop. You can fly directly into Italy from the US, primarily into Milan and Rome. But a lot of flights that you'll find probably will direct you through Germany or through London, oftentimes. Now, when to travel? This is always a big question. It's one of the biggest questions that I get. When should I go? What's the best month for me to go? Well, I would say, I always tell people, try to go when it is the lower season or the shoulder season. People often think the shoulder season, when is that? That's September and that's May. No, that's prime time. That is high tourist season. The shoulder season or the off season is before Easter or after November 1st. My favorite times of year are to go in late October because I love the food. I love the cool temperatures. I love the falling leaves because, we don't get seasons here. So I really love that time of year. The springtime, you're going to get the poppies like this. But if you're traveling anytime between Easter and November 1st, it's high season. You're going to be dealing with bigger crowds in the larger top sites. And you're also going to be, once it gets into summer, June, July, August, very, very hot. I'm not sure if you were following this year, how hot it was, but be prepared for heat in June, July, and August. So early spring, late fall would be my recommendations on when to travel. Now, where to go? This is obviously a big question for everyone. Now, if you've never been to Italy before, you probably want to do Venice, Florence, Rome. Those are the top sites. You might have kind of an alternative that you want to maybe go and find some family home in Sicily or in the south of Italy, or you have a specific agenda. But for the first time person, going to Venice, Florence, and Rome are a good thing to do because those are the most famous sites. However, you have to do it really smartly. So first trip, go see the biggies, but do it smartly. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. If you're an art lover, certainly Venice, Florence, and Rome are great places to go, but so is Mantua, so is Padua. So is Urbino or Ravenna, or even Naples for the wonderful Roman art from Pompeii, even Sicily. There's art everywhere. If you're interested in the road less traveled and not going to those big cities, that there are all kinds of amazing experiences, and you don't have to worry so much about crowds or traveling in an off season if you're going off the beaten track. Now, if you're traveling with kids, you want to make sure that you really pace yourself. and factor in some kid-friendly activities, going to the beach, renting kayaks, going to a park, going to a big Roman ruin that's outside. Don't try to cram too many different things in if you're traveling with kids. If you're a food lover, go anywhere. Every region, every city has its specialty. I would encourage you strongly, whatever town you go to, ask what the specialty is. I don't even know how many different types of pastas there are, but every region, every city has its specialty. So food lovers, just go to Italy. The focus on wine. If you're really interested in wine, you probably know your wines and you're interested in going to different regions. Again, all over Italy, Sardinia, even Sicily, certainly all over Italy, phenomenal wines. And the only places really that aren't making wine are in the Alps and in the high Apennine Mountains. Now, how to travel around once you're there? Should you rent a car? Should you take a train? There's pros and cons for both. With renting a car, there's flexibility. In certain circumstances, you can save time. It's economical, especially if there's a group of 4 of you. Of course, you're going to need to prepare for how much luggage you've got there. All you need is your U.S. driver's license and a credit card. That's it. Gas is more expensive, though. And if you're going to cities, if you're going to be staying primarily in cities, it's not so great to have a car because parking is complicated. Learning the Italian traffic signage is complicated. If you're going to be traveling to cities, it's best to just take a train. And I've got a couple of images here of 2 different trains. The top image is the high-speed train, the Frecciarossa, the red arrow, and the bottom one is a local train. So you might be taking both of those. The pros of taking trains: there are train stations right in the center of most Italian cities. So you're going to go from center of city to center of city, and then you have bus or cabs coming out from all of those train stations. So it's very, very convenient. Often it's faster to take a train often than even flying. You don't have to worry about traffic. It's relaxing. You can sit, read your guidebook, talk to your travel companions, or even sleep. So taking trains is really, it's easy to do once you get the hang of it. But it also can be expensive. If you're traveling on those high-speed trains, if you book at the last minute, it can get a little bit expensive. But also the cost of gas over in Italy is considerably more than here. So the cost, it probably evens out. So it just really depends on where you are going and what you want to do. If you do travel around by trains, I've got a website here for you. Trenitalia is the national rail system, trenitalia.com. And you can book your train tickets ahead, and there is an English language menu. Just look for the flag at the very top. Or if you wait and you want to just buy them at the train station, my biggest tip is don't wait in the big line to buy a train ticket from the person who is not really excited to be selling tickets at the train station and may not speak English. Go to these little kiosks, which you can just push a little British flag and get English and buy your ticket from the kiosk. Now you can see on the picture of those little vending machines there that some of them take credit cards, and you can see also down towards the middle part there of the machine, there's a cash symbol. Now, this is where that chip and pin credit card comes in handy. Machines like this will often not take your US credit card, so you would need to use cash often. So make sure that you go to a machine that has a cash symbol unless you have a chip and pin card. I have never had any luck using one of our ATM cards to get a ticket out of these machines. And there are very few US cards that actually have a true chip and pin. Okay. The other thing about traveling on trains, though, this is changing as Italy gets more and more evolved with their train systems and their reservation system. This machine that I have in the center, the green machine, that is a validating machine. So if you get a local ticket that doesn't have a specific time of departure and date on it, you should validate it at that machine, just like the old time punch clock when you clocked into work. So look for those validating machines. You'll see them everywhere. Now, while you're there, what to see, what to do, what to eat, what to drink. We're going to talk about all of this now. So in thinking about your trip over, I would recommend, coming from Hawaii especially, not going over for anything less than 2 weeks. To me, it's not worth it to go less than a month, just because I'm terrible with jet lag, but not a minimum of 2 weeks. If you're a first timer, if you've never been to Venice, Venice is absolutely a magical city. If you've never been to Rome, there's so much history. There's so much art. There's so much to do and see and eat. In Florence, you have the Renaissance, so much art, such a beautiful city. You want to see these big places. But if you're going to go during the season between Easter and November 1st, enjoy the big sites, but you have to do it smartly. One of the ways that you can really enjoy those big cities is by avoiding crowds. This is where your good guidebook can help you. What you can do, when I'm moving around Italy, I am constantly trying to avoid these kind of lines. Now, that photo on the left there with that tour guide, I took that. That's the Vatican Museum. There's only one time of year I've ever been in the Vatican Museum when it didn't look like that, and it was the first 2 weeks in December. I've never been there in late January or February. It might be less crowded then. But again, if you're going to go between Easter and November 1st, probably even into late November, it will be crowded. If museums, generally speaking, if museums in Europe are big and famous, like the Louvre in Paris or the Vatican Museum in Rome, try to go in the evening if they have evening hours, because your big group tours aren't going to go at that time. Other tips would be to go early in the morning, try to get the first entrance possible, or later in the day. But the best tip that I can give you is to make reservations. Most of these big museums now have a reservation system. You can book online well ahead of time and get an entry time. Again, the best time I would suggest to make your reservation, generally speaking, it's early in the morning, especially if you're going between April and November because of the heat and the crowds. So I would go earliest you can in the morning. That's always my recommendation. But if you can't do that, later in the day, but make reservations. The websites of those museums will have information about how to make reservations, and your guidebooks should tell you how to do that as well. You can also consider doing a guided tour. You can get local guides. You can book them ahead of time. You can do small group. You can do a private tour. So you may or may not need to buy your tickets ahead of time if you do a guided tour with a local guide. But local guides are fantastic. They really make the experience come to life. Now, if you're not so interested in the big sites, the big cities, the road less traveled is the way I like to travel personally. I love the big cities. I love to experience them. I love the things that they have to offer. But I also like getting off the beaten track. And if you're going to travel the road less traveled, you don't have to worry so much about the season. You can go in June, you can go in September, if you're going to the smaller places, if you're not going to the bigger places. If you are going to those big places, booking a hotel well in advance is essential. And in thinking about hotels, this is my moment to talk about different lodging options. In thinking about hotels, What I would say is make your reservation as far in advance as possible. And also choose the location of your hotel very carefully. Try to make your hotel reservation near any of the sites that you wanted to see, either walking distance or easy to get to by public transportation. So hotels offer a lot of convenience in terms of having someone there potentially 24 hours, serving. Usually Italian hotels will serve breakfast in addition to your stay. You have someone who's working there who can offer you help or advice. So hotels can be a really great way to go. Airbnb, unlike Hawaii, we don't have so much Airbnb here, but like a lot of places on the mainland, Airbnb is everywhere in Italy, and you can rent a villa via Airbnb, or you can just rent a little studio apartment. You can rent all kinds of different accommodations via Airbnb. And renting an apartment can really be a great way to immerse yourself in the culture, and also maybe stay in an actual neighborhood. But really, read the reviews of the Airbnb very thoroughly. Make sure, if you're not traveling in that April or November time, that they have good working air conditioning, because Italy is getting hotter and hotter with climate change. So you want to make sure your hotel and your Airbnb have air conditioning, and probably Wi-Fi too. Another idea for you, if you're traveling on the back roads, the road less traveled, is to consider an agriturismo. An agriturismo is agriculture tourism. So it's kind of a farm stay. A lot of the small family farms have had difficult time, just like in the US, and they've started to open up some of their buildings, some of the rooms in their outhouse, in their outbuildings, or in their villas or their homes. They've changed these into self-catering, or you serve yourself, go out and shop, kind of all on your own type of a place to stay. So you can have a little apartment, you could have an you could have a beautiful big villa all to yourself. There's all kinds of options there. You can find an agriturismo that raises horses, where you can go horseback riding, or one that has a chef and you can do cooking classes. The variety is incredible. All you have to do is decide where you want to stay, and then decide on, just Google agriturismo Siena, agriturismo Turin, agriturismo near Florence, whatever you want to do. There are many, 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 and of all different types of varieties. And they're a great experience to really immerse yourself in the culture. But for an agriturismo, you would need to have a car. Okay. Now, renting a villa, same kind of thing. You could Google villa, and then just name the place that you want to stay, and you're likely to find a villa there. But oftentimes these agriturismo or the villas will even list themselves on Airbnb. Now, eating well. A lot of you probably are thinking about, I want to go to Italy and eat because I love the Italian food. There are some tips that I have for you in terms of the logistics of eating. First of all, when do Italians eat? Italians eat from noon to about 2:30 in the afternoon, and that's lunchtime. And then the dinner time isn't until 7. Italians don't eat until usually 8 or later. So a restaurant isn't going to typically open up until 7 p.m. or 7:30 at the earliest. So you have to think about, if you're starting to feel hungry around 6 o'clock in the evening, well, probably the only thing you can do really is get a slice of pizza, or they also have something in Italy that's fantastic called an apericena. Cena is dinner, aperi like aperitivo, appetizer, kind of happy hour time, and they'll serve small plates, kind of like tapas, or because we're in Hawaii, pupus. They'll serve little pupus with a glass of wine, a beer, or a cocktail of some kind. And you can sit and even have a light dinner at a place that serves apericena. But if you want to sit down, nice meal, 7 or 7:30 in the evening. Now, choosing a restaurant, your good guidebooks are going to have great suggestions on that. Lots of people use websites to choose restaurants. But if you're just wandering around, my suggestion would be look for a place that has Italians eating in it because they know their food. And also look for restaurants that don't have a laminated menu that has lots of pictures on it and translated into 4 or 5 languages. Look for one that has just a kind of a paper menu that has some specialties written down on there, because that's the fresh daily menu that the chef has chosen for you. So that's kind of a way to do it if you're just wandering around. And anymore, especially in these bigger cities, if you see a place or you've heard of a place that you'd like to go, ask your hotel to call and make a reservation for you, or stop by the restaurant to make a reservation in advance. It's a really good idea, especially if you're traveling during that kind of peak time between Easter and November 1st. Now, Italians eat in courses. You don't have to order all the courses. They start with an antipasto. You don't have to have an antipasto. The antipasto is the appetizer. Cheese, meats, if you're in Venice, a little fish, could be something with vegetables, any kind of a little appetizer. Then they do a primo, which is your pasta course. Secondo, which is like a meat or fish, and the dolce. The dolce is sweet. That's your dessert. Now, Italians, they don't usually get a plate that has their meat course on the plate and then a side of this and that and the other thing. The sides are separate. It's called a contorno, and you have to order those separately. So everything is separate. And you could order just a main dish, a secondo. You could order just a pasta. You could order just an antipasto or 2 and a dessert. Whatever you want. You don't have to order all of everything, okay? Now, the bill. The bill for first-time travelers is a little bit confusing sometimes. First of all, Italians are not going, an Italian waiter is not going to bring you your check without you asking. If you sit down at a table, that's your table. You have it for the evening. They're not trying to turn the table. So you sit down, you enjoy yourself, and you have to ask for the bill. So wave at the waiter, try to get his or her attention, and then ask. You can just do this, or you can say il conto, which is the bill. Il conto per favore, because we're polite, right? Per favore, please. So you have to ask for the check. Second thing is, in Italy, they don't tip. What they do have is they will have a service charge, servizio, it might say, or coperto, like cover, means for the linens on the table, or pane and coperto, bread and cover. It can say one of these things, but it's going to be in little tiny script somewhere on the menu. It's going to be written what that is. And it's usually something like 2, 3, 4 euros per person. Okay, so on your bill, you may see some odd charge that's for 2 euros times the number of people at your table. So that's what that is. That's a service charge, but you don't have to tip. Okay, so it's no 15%. If you left 15%, they'd do backflips for you. But it's nice if you thought the service was good to just round up. So if your check is 38 euros, leave them 40. If it's 42 euros, leave them 45. They really appreciate it. It's almost like you left them a thank you note. They really, really appreciate that. Now, eating like an Italian. Italians eat seasonally, they eat locally, and they eat slowly. So that's what I mean by the table is yours for the evening. Sit down. They're not going to rush the service. It might take a little bit longer than you think, or that you think it should. But if you're ordering multiple courses, they're going to wait until you're finished with one, very likely, before they even maybe start the next one, because they want you to have time to digest it and enjoy. So settle in and enjoy the meal. Locally, they have a philosophy there called Kilometer Zero, which means that they focus on foods that are really almost in their backyard. They really like to focus on foods that are grown right in the surrounding area. So asking what's in season, what's local, that's a great way to do it. And they eat seasonally. So the fish or whatever the vegetables or whatever's in season or been caught that day, they really like to focus on seasonal. So that's all right, what I've got for us for tonight. Again, this is just an introduction. I want to thank all of you for suffering through my technical difficulties and for joining me for this inaugural talk. And I want to invite you to attend our next talk, which will be March 8th. At 6:30 Hawaiian time, 6:30 p.m. Hawaiian time, and we'll talk about Florence and Tuscany and traveling in those places. So we'll talk about the big city, Florence, how to move around, where to stay, what to do, what to eat. And we'll also move out into the countryside of Tuscany and talk about some places that you haven't heard of and answer questions about that. So I'm really interested to hear your questions now. I've left my website here for the tours that I do. Also my Instagram, if you like to follow me. I'm new to that. So work with me. Hopefully you'll be kind. I've been adding some images to my Instagram. And also I have my email. So if you'd like to reach out with a question, or talk with me sometime, you have my email there. Please go ahead and take it down. And if you'd like to sign up for my mailing list about my other events that I'll be doing, or get any information about the tours that I do, please send me an email to Trina@guided-by.com, and I will happily respond.